Well, here we are, struggling back to a Friday after a tough week all around. But then everybody's had the same thing, haven't they? So what the heck? TGIF, though, I can't wait for it to be Keith's wine time today. And since there'll be no beer tasting. And anyway, I'm going to be shoved off the air in an hour's time to make way for Liza Page, who joins the Max. They both had tonsillitis or something of the sort this last couple of days.
I'm not sure what she had, but I've had tonsillitis.
You've had tonsillitis, yeah. Well,
still not back to 100%, but I'm here.
It's good stuff. And I forgot what I was going to say next. Now, never mind. We'll go to the headlines in a moment. But it hasn't been a great week for the Conservatives, and they've ended up, as I said they would, in the muck, because they allowed the backbenchers to get involved in things of great import, and those backbenchers are not fit for purpose. Been saying it for a year. They are not fit for purpose. Ever since they started all the nonsense about Boris, they've shown that the system that we have for becoming an MP is flawed, very badly flawed. And it's because of this so-called diversity, so that we get ratios and so on and so forth, and we don't get the best people. And they start to tinker around, and then they panic. And now they panic themselves into tipping over the precipice. And all because of a bloody iced cake. It beggars belief. But there we are. That's what it is to be an MP, as you play around in the way that none of the rest of us would play around. And the consequence is disaster, absolute disaster. So let's take a look at the newspaper headlines. All right. The Guardian, the Prime Minister holds crunch talks with the watchdog over fiscal chaos. And they're looking down to fill that story out. Last week's the fallout from last week's mini budget and the turmoil it has sparked in the financial markets continues to lead the papers. The Guardian reports that Prime Minister Liz Truss is to hold emergency talks with the head of the Office for Budget Responsibility, the UK's fiscal watchdog, after failing to reassure the markets about her economic plans. The paper quotes a government source saying the meeting is like trying to read the manual after you've broken the thing. Well, I understand what they're saying, and let's see what the Metro has to say. Actually, it has a big picture across the front banner of the Queen, and it says it shows the Queen's Balmoral death certificate. What do you think of that, Max?
Of the Queen's death certificate?
Yes.
I don't really have an opinion on it. It's nothing to. I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be a piece of history, but I don't see an issue with it.
I think it's quite interesting that they would
publish it. I mean, Elvis's one still hasn't been published after something like 60 years.
Well, I wonder why. Mind you, I think that probably this was done to show that she didn't suffer, that it wasn't she wasn't in pain for any length of time, because she'd actually been working the day before, hadn't she?
Yeah, she had.
Yeah. Like the Labour lead Tories by 33 points, says the Metro, with great glee. The Metro, being a London paper, hates the government with a passion.
It doesn't hate the government; it hates the Conservative government.
Oh, you wait until the other lot get in. The fact of the matter is, I think that you've got great faith in the fact that if this government changes, that everything will be better. The Labour lot are no different. They choose their people exactly the same way. So what we've got is 650 people who are not fit for purpose. The whole lot of them.
No, you completely misunderstood what I meant. I absolutely do not think if there was a Labour government, it'd be better in any way. What I'm saying is the papers hate the Conservative government, the Metro as well. If there were a Labour government, they would be kissing their ass the whole time.
Well, you're right. You're right there. Although I must say that it is an interesting editorial decision, and I haven't come across this in all my years in journalism. Is what two of the papers have been doing. Well, the Sun, for one, is when it felt that it was going to lose out from any sort of confrontation attacking the government, it's run some other story. Now, today, the Daily Mail hasn't run a story, but it did yesterday. It ran a story about the man in jail swallowing his phone, or at least getting his phone inside him. Yes, yesterday's story was that that a prisoner, somebody from the infamous Lawrence case, where he was not hacked to death. Well, he was stabbed to death by a gang of youths, and the police actually almost went in for a cover-up. But anyway, this was one of the guys who killed Lawrence, a black man. And he now has managed to get hold of an iPhone.
Yeah, I don't think the guy swallowed the phone.
No, I don't think so. It said it was X-rayed in a very intimate place.
Oh God!
Yeah, defies belief, doesn't it? Okay. The Tories fear a wipeout after 3 weeks of trust as Prime Minister, and the Tories. I have to put my spectacles on for this. The Tories fear wipeout reads the headline in the I paper. It says Miss Truss's backbenchers have reacted with shock and fury to the tumult of recent days, with one telling the paper she has to go. Bring back Boris. For God's sake, it was the same people that got rid of Boris and threw pushed Liz Truss in with a great surge to be Prime Minister. Now listen to them. 3 days or 3 weeks is to me it seems like 3 days.
What do you think? Do you think they should bring him back?
I don't think it's possible, actually. Not at this stage.
It is as well. It's extremely unlikely, but do you think it should happen?
Well, I'm not a Boris detractor in the sense that he's a tough bugger. He is a very controversial man and always will be. Yeah. So some of the fringe things.
Well, he's not as controversial as he used to be. He's toned it down a lot since when he was mayor and an MP and working for the Telegraph. I mean, he used to call Muslim people letterbox faces. He would never say something like that today.
No. I mean that's true. But by the same token, I think that give Boris an international crisis or a huge national crisis, and he's brilliant. Give him the domestic stuff, and he's not.
No,
he's not interested. And to be quite honest with you, that's accusation has been leveled at me. Keith, you're not interested really in local politics. You're only interested in the big stuff. And I have to say that I do find that local politics bores me because it's all to do with lost cats and
although you do occasionally get the interesting one where the entire town council just moves somewhere else. That couldn't happen here or anything.
No, actually, that is a running story. I mean, it's still as ridiculous now as it was today, as it was when they first mooted it. But these councils, particularly executives, they don't care what people think. They do whatever suits them, and it suited them to go to Eastbourne. So that's what happened. They went to Eastbourne, no matter that most people said no, no, no. And that's the trouble with governments today. They are not listening to their public. So when they make a mistake, is getting their ass thoroughly kicked is a suitable reward because they do not pay attention to what the public want. They know better. And then it all goes belly up, turns turtle, and they're in trouble, and they appeal to the public. Give me strength. Right, okay, there's Daily Mail. They actually put a banner across. The Queen died of natural causes.
Well, the banner here says, okay, there you go. The banner here says, the Queen dies of old age at 3:10 p.m., but Harry wasn't notified for another 3 hours. From the Daily Mail.
Does it matter, do you think? I mean,
yeah, well, it's her grandson.
Yeah.
I do think.
How soon were the others notified?
Immediately.
Were they?
Yeah.
Because I would have thought from the time that the death certificate was signed, is that everybody would want to make sure formalities were followed, and that you can't do within 2 minutes. So, okay, I'll take your word for it that the others were notified.
He was notified last.
In which case,
Which, you know, I mean, if that was me, I would certainly be upset as much
as
anyone
I'm not
would.
saying he shouldn't be upset. I'm not surprised, though.
No, I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah, we agree on something.
Yeah, we agree on.
Well done.
We do agree on
a
few things here and there. Certainly agree with you on a lot more than me and Stuart.
The Mail says Miss Truss has vowed to press ahead with her plans despite the possible electoral consequences. It describes the round, this is the Mail, by the way, the round of interviews conducted with the Prime Minister by a number of local BBC radio stations on Thursday is bruising, but quotes her saying, "We had to take urgent action to get our economy growing." Well, there you are. I mean, that's the question of growth, I think, is a difficult one because nobody wants to go back to work. And actually, what we've become is a very lazy society. And that's partly through the COVID experience. One can understand if you were getting up at 10 o'clock and going to work in your kitchen and then quitting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you most certainly don't want to get back to getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, catching a train to go to Whitehall and to London rather, and working and getting home at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. But that's what it calls for. If you're going to work in those areas, that's what it calls for. And we have got lazy. We don't want to go back to work. It's interesting because you come in by bus and I come in by bus, and
we get the same one.
The chap that gets on the bus with me each morning, he says, "Look at this, an empty bus, an empty bus, an empty bus." And then he looks at the road leading into Brighton, and he says, "There, look, no traffic, no traffic, no traffic." And although he exaggerates a little bit, he's right. There's nobody is going back to work. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Everybody says they work from home, but there have been long articles written about the fact that working from home is not ideal, as you well know.
Even for me, I worked from home for a week for school during the pandemic, college, sorry. And then after the first week, I went, I can't do this. So I attended college for 3 months during lockdown, the last lockdown. And it was great. I was the only one who went to college. I had the whole building to myself. It was just me and 2 teachers. I was the only student that turned up for college during the pandemic. The only one.
Well, did the teachers sit in the staff room?
No. Well, one of them was an admin and the other was my teaching assistant.
All right. So you got personal tutelage?
Yeah, but I always have. Because I've always had a personal TA because of my issues that I have.
All right.
So I've always had one.
Okay.
But yeah, when I was coming in on the trains, it would be the London to Brighton train, and there would be 12 carriages, and across the entire train there would be maybe 7 people.
Yeah.
I counted how many people on the train every morning as we got off, because Brighton is the last stop,
isn't it? Right, the Times, is it the Times? Yes, the Times, defiant Prime Minister set to curb benefits to fund budgets. Now, if they stagger from one unpopular policy to another, can you imagine in this sort of socialist state that we have, is saying you're going to cut benefits and then expect some sort of hooray because you're helping the economy? Not a bit of it. Not a bit of it. They've jumped on her straight away. What benefits are you going to cut? And I have to say that part of the discussion with a couple of my colleagues is does that mean the old age pensions?
Oh yeah, those are benefits as well. I do think some of the benefits should be cut even before the pandemic, because I think too many people do actually just live off benefits and sit in their house and do nothing all day.
I think you're probably right. Actually, not a very popular thing to say.
I know a lot. I do know people who do that. I do know people who do that.
Yeah, well, I suspect there's a lot more than just people you and I would know. I think it's a big strain of that right across the country.
I mean, I don't know that many people, and I know a few people who just sit and have benefits.
Yeah, but you probably know a variety of people, so your survey is as good as anybody else's. Ministers are drawing up plans for real-term benefit cuts to help fund the spending. Spending what? Excuse me, I put my spectacles on. The spending laid out in the mini budget. The Times reports that under the plans, benefit payments would increase in line with earnings instead of inflation, a change that would bring £5 billion in saving. It also reports that the results of its YouGov poll has left some Tory MPs openly speculating that Truss will not be in Downing Street at the end of the year. Well, that'd be shortest premiership.
I don't think that's true. Do you think that Liz Truss will be here by the end of the year?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things that, while it's easy to say, well, not really. I mean, she shouldn't be. But you, along with me, have witnessed the way that some of these backbenchers, in other words, members of the Conservative Party, who, after all, are the people that decide who's Prime Minister, not us, and they have behaved very badly all the way along. At the moment that they get a hiccup in their thinking is they sack somebody. So they sack Boris, and now they're talking almost immediately, because they don't like what she's doing.
They did the same to Theresa May, but she wasn't great, to be honest. But the Tories have been in power for something ridiculous, like 75% of my entire life. And what do they have to show for it?
Well,
they haven't really.
I wouldn't say that there's. I mean, they've kept a very steady ship.
Yeah, they have, but they haven't done anything. They've just kept everything sort of the same.
Well, yeah, but they put it there in the first place. It's not easy to change the country philosophy in the way that it did. Mind you, in fairness, we've had a Labour government in reaction to Margaret Thatcher, and then we got a disastrous bloke, Tony Blair. But everybody thought he was wonderful at the time, if you recall.
When did Tony Blair leave power? Was I alive?
Well, he went into 97, and he 3 terms. So I think he must have been about 2014, 2013.
Oh, no. Before that. Before 2010.
Well, I mean, he served 3 terms, and he didn't get in until 97. So it's got to be around 2000.
Give me 2 seconds.
Check it out. Here's the good old checker. Whenever I say something that he disagrees with, immediately
goes to Tony Blair leave office?
All right, okay. The Daily Telegraph, in the meantime, is benefits hit as the Prime Minister tries to stem the bleeding.
From 1997 to 2007.
Right. Okay.
So it was before
10
2010.
years, yeah. The Telegraph reports on estimates by the Resolution Foundation suggesting that some families could be £1,000 a year worse off if benefits do not rise in line with inflation. It adds that ministers have been warned spending cuts not seen since George Osborne's austerity drive in the wake of the 2008-2009 financial crisis could be needed to balance the books. Come back, whoever, all is forgiven. The Mirror, the new £5 coin, soon to be worth about 50p, it says. Thanks, PM. Not much there.
Who's that from?
That's from The Mirror. A new £5 coin to mark the ascension of King Charles III to the throne features on the front of the Mirror, where the paper says the coin is soon to be worth only about 50p. And it says, thanks, Prime Minister. Right, okay.
Is that actually real or is that a novelty?
What, the coin?
Yeah.
I think, well, I mean, any coin that is struck by the mint is a legal tender. But whether, in fact, there'll be enough to pass it on into the economy, I don't know. But I think it probably is going to be a legal coin. I don't think it'll just be a collector's item. Well, who knows? The Daily Express, the peaceful death of the Queen from old age. As I said, some papers run from the issues, and it's the Express's turn today. It leads with the publication yesterday of the Queen's death certificate, which confirmed she died peacefully at Balmoral Castle at 3:10 p.m. on the 8th of September. But then it adds the cause of death was given as old age. Well, I can well imagine that, and I can well imagine that's exactly what she died with.
I mean, 96 is a very old age.
Yeah, it is. The Sun, a photo purportedly showing the ex-husband of Fern Britton, a former presenter on ITV's This Morning, kissing her best friend, and it features on the front page of the newspaper, which says Phil Vickery, a long-standing chef on the show, kissed Lorraine Stanton after emerging from his home, or from her home, his home in London. They want to.
Who's that from?
That's the Sun. They want some pretty good chew it up stuff. The Daily Star. Oh, the Daily Star is top boffins warn of a robot Armageddon. Science fiction, it says. Star reports that top boffins have warned that cyborgs could destroy the world in a robot Armageddon. It says the news comes just when you thought 2022 couldn't get any worse.
Well, it's from the Daily Star, so it must be true.
Absolutely.
It must be true.
Armies of cyborgs all lining up now to take over from mankind.
Yeah.
Mind you,
it's quite a way away.
What I have been saying is that man has right at this very moment in time has allowed computers to start doing its work, and that is dangerous.
Yeah.
The computer is supposed to help man do his work more efficiently, not do it for him. And if this is a consequence or a pointer to the way things are going to go, then bring on the cyborgs.
And just to be clear, with everything is being controlled by computers and it's doing humans' jobs, anything can be hacked into that's connected to the internet. Anything. No matter how secure you think it is, it can be hacked into.
Right.
Sure, it may be extremely difficult in some cases, but it's possible. a lot of these things can just be hacked into and corrupted and just deleted.
Yes.
Imagine if someone just hacked into the banking network, which is it's happened before. It's gonna happen again at some point. How bad is it going to be? We don't know yet. But it does have the potential to cause some real chaos because everything's connected to the internet and everything's controlled by the computers.
Yes, a lot of truth in what you say there. Okay, well that's the papers at the moment. What's on the back page, Max?
The back page?
Yeah. Any sporting story to lift our spirits?
Nothing spirit lifting really. A lot of it's just
Just look at the back page. The back page. Yeah, you know the reason that these sports go onto the back page is because the way people read a newspaper is they read the front page first and then they turn it over. So the back page is actually the second front page.
People who are interested in sports.
I don't know if no, it's the same old stuff. Football getting its knickers into a twist about something or other. I mean, 4 or 5 pages of it. It's getting silly. It is getting silly, is it not? Yes, it is.
Well, we'll go to a break. We'll go to Grange Park, the Potter's Wheel.
Very well.
We'll go there. What was I going to say?
Okay, Max has got a biggie from the inside pages.
So, big story. I don't know why this isn't on the front pages. It must have been in the front pages yesterday when I wasn't here. But Nord Stream gas pipeline was apparently attacked in 5 different places. There have been major leaks to the Nord Stream pipeline, which goes from Russia to Germany, because Germany gets the majority of its gas and oil from Russia, which was a terrible decision. I don't know why you would buy valuable things. I don't understand why you would buy gas and oil from your enemies. That seems like a very ridiculous thing to do.
Yes, it does. The only thing is that we as Stuart points out, we can't forever be self-sustainable.
No.
That's why the big push to wind power and nuclear energy and so on and so forth. Everybody feels the same way as you. We shouldn't rely upon our enemies particularly, but anybody with oil and gas for all our fuel. And the only thing is that the green thing seems to be going wrong. Even nature doesn't like it very much.
Well, the blasts were caught on a Swedish, I can't remember the word, but I think it's called a seismic reactor,
right?
To measure earthquakes. And the earthquake measurer measured the blast. So this is potentially the real first signs of World War III.
Yeah, there's been sort of a Cold War. I mean, a Cold War working up to this point. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this seems like the big one that everyone is really going to focus on. It seems like it's going to be what really kicks it off.
Yeah. Can well believe it. Right, let me remind you that it is 8:02, and we can expect a chilly day today, only 16. Fairly robust breezes, it says, and not a lot of sun. However, looking out of the window, the courthouse is once again bathed in sunshine this morning and looking very grand for it as well. So I think that actually the forecasters may be just a bit ahead of themselves, and we are going to get some half decent weather today.
Well, when I was coming in, it was lovely and bright. The only thing it wasn't was warm.
Yeah.
It was freezing cold.
Yes. Oh, well, that I can imagine. Right. Do you want to sort of play a little something? Perhaps if you actually yesterday too, you might find something there. We used Tall Tales yesterday, but I think if you go down a bit, one of the things that we showed yesterday was how we do travelogues. Is a combination of true video, model railways, and the real railways in a country. And yesterday we did New Zealand, and I think you'll find at the bottom there somewhere is that's the one we showed. But I think there's another one there from. Oh no, we showed Russia yesterday. I apologize. We can show New Zealand today.
Right. Okay, do you want to show that now?
Why not? It'll give us a little breather after all this doom and gloom.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, I know I'm a fairly well-travelled man, and yesterday we showed that little travelogue. That's the way we do it, with model trains and real trains and scenery to be seen from the railways. And I have some knowledge of Russia. I have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of New Zealand. It's a funny little island tucked away at the bottom of the world. And I have a huge admiration for them because it's a little island. They turn out a first-class rugby team. In fact, world champions more often than not. There you are. You saw a bit of what New Zealand is like, and a pretty bleak landscape, it seems to me. Now, a couple of things that since we gave you the newspaper front pages, is there is some later news that says Liz Truss's path to regain market credibility, and she's going to meet with the Office of Budget Regulation to discuss things through. And the market seems to be easing a little bit, particularly since new growth figures suggest that the UK is not in recession. So after all I've been yelling and shouting about people getting off their backsides and getting back to work, apparently the picture is a little better than we anticipated.
I think a lot of it is, I don't know what to think, because I believe the media on one thing, then I don't on another, but we're definitely going to be in a recession. There's no doubt about it. Are we in one right now?
Well, on the measure, the reason that they're saying that we're not is that you need 2 quarters to be a negative growth for us to be in recession. Well, we got one, and everybody anticipated that we were going to get another. It says that the growth has shown that the economy has grown a little.
But how much growth is that? Does it say?
No, but it's not a loss. That's the point. I mean, growth is growth, whether it's 0.1% or 10%. In other words, we didn't go any further down. Right, final day before energy bills rise. Now, if there's anything that's confused me, is what support we're going to get and what we're not going to get. And the energy companies themselves aren't that clever about this. The bills are going to rise October the 1st because it's the new cap comes off or goes on or whatever. And by the same token, there is emergency measures where some bills will be locked off, particularly for those who are particularly poor. But I can't tell whether it's locked off the old bill, the new bill, or whatever. It's got into a right muck as far as I'm concerned. And the first coins featuring the King Charles, are unveiled today. So whether in fact they are going on sale today or being pumped into the economy today, I don't know. And Max asked a very sensible question: are they an ornamental coin because it is a £5 coin?
Yeah.
Is it an ornamental coin, or is it going to be real? Are we going to have a £5 coin in our pocket instead of a £5 note? But I think actually we are moving towards a coin, a metal coin
Shortage?
No, there's going to be, as value drops in the currency, so they get away with notes. So, for instance, you don't have a £1 note anymore. And soon, I think it's been mooted that we won't have a £5 note. So this coin will actually then go into circulation.
And then we won't have 1s and 2p's. We won't have pennies anymore. Canada has already got rid of pennies.
Yeah, has it? The cent has gone, has it?
Yeah.
I can't remember whether it's Canada or the United States that didn't have a 2-cent coin, and it used to be their version of fraud was to be as bent as a 2-cent coin, whereas we would say as a Oh no, it's a $2 bill. That's right. Yes, a $2 bill. That was their phrase. Okay. Now I spied at the back of the hotel that your sidekick,
Yeah.
Liza, has arrived through the door. I expect she's going to get herself ready to join you, but we might actually look at something to play while we switch chairs, and people
Yes.
don't see us playing musical chairs.
I will look for stuff, but we'll play it at around 20 to 25 past. We'll go through one more story that I have here.
All right, good, good, yes.
Elon Musk from the Daily Express, well, not Daily, sorry, just from the Express. Elon Musk humiliated over closing of Germany's Tesla. Why am I having so much trouble reading? I'm sorry about this.
It's all right. I got my teeth in between my tongue, or vice versa, the other morning. Sometimes it happens. Do you want me to have a look and see what it says?
Yeah.
Is Musk humiliated for choosing Germany over UK as the locals call for a Tesla plant to be scrapped? So
this was supposed to be opened in 2020, the Tesla plant in Germany, but because of COVID, there have been so many delays and more delays, and they're going to scrap it completely. And to have a Tesla factory in this country doesn't make sense because it's more expensive, and we're an island. We can't ship out cars as easily to the rest of Europe. Plus, we're not in the EU anymore, so that would be even more difficult. And why would you make cars on an island to ship them to mainland continent?
Well, of course, at one stage, the motor industry was the basics, and it was always Margaret Thatcher was blamed for undermining that as well, because I actually remember when I was broadcasting in Birmingham, having a shop steward on from the Coventry plants, which are notorious for strikes, and also for being totally inefficient. And what they used to do on a Friday night is they would elect one man to stand by and pretend to run the machines, and the rest would clock in because they used to have a card which went into a clock to say what time he went to work. He would clock in for all of them. They would go to the pub, and then he would walk out at the other end and join them. So there was absolutely nobody in the factory, but everybody was getting paid for it. So no productivity, but plenty of expense.
I do have one other thing about strikes. Now you mention it, reminded me. Royal Mail is going on strike.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Starting from today. They're going on. It's a lot to read out here, but from September the 30th, October the 1st, October the 13th, the 20th, the 25th. Then it gets to November. It's on strike the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and the 26th and the 30th of November alone, and then the 1st and 2nd of December.
Well, frankly, I am very pleased. I don't get anything in the mail except nasty letters from banks and things. That'll foil the banks. They won't be sending out nasty letters to you unless what they do is they send them out and they all arrive at once after the postman have gone back.
Oh, God, they will, yeah. You'll get all the bad news at once.
Yeah, because the computers won't stop.
Oh, God. But, yeah.
I see. Oh, gosh. It looks as if you've got some comments.
Oh, goodness. I didn't even notice.
Right.
Oh, these are from going back a while now.
Are they?
So from 20 minutes ago, Naomi Albert.
All right. Hey, are you getting back to my Gmail, or should I send everything here? Right, Naomi. Your message: if you do not participate or respond, I will expose you to the public. Oh, right. No, that's a naughty one. How he's Shall I? I'll tell you what this is about. So I think that we drop this one, but actually it's blackmailer. Yeah, a blackmailer, and he's had a real go at, or she has had a real go at our regular man as well. Show me the other one that we get regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you go back to the top?
Anyway, well,
yeah, she's also had a go, which is rather naughty, at somebody who comes in. She's obviously reading these things and then deciding that should be naughty. And she had to go also at our regular man. I want to say Philip, and that's wrong.
Your regular man.
Yeah. Never mind. Okay, do away with it.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh well. So we will go to a break. Video files. Okay.
Yes. I think the reason that I wanted to say what that was all about is it just shows what can happen on the internet. The trolls get going, and if they want to be nasty, they can be nasty. Personally, I would just chop their heads off. But I guess that somebody would object.
Yeah, I mean, I never really pay any attention to them because why? I mean, giving them attention just gives them more fuel. So
yes, it does.
So. The Bloody History of Tyne Town, episode 5. Now, I haven't seen this one yet. We can play a portion of this.
Yes, okay. Play a portion of that.
Okay. Haven't seen this one before.
Bloody Lewis. Hi. Bloodletting wasn't confined to fierce battles and the tilting gentry. There were lots of naughty people around in Lewis over the centuries. And the good citizens of the town made sure they paid for their crimes. The Saxons kicked up a bit of a fuss after the Normans took over. And the new masters of the town got a bit heavy with them. The Saxons had used hanging as their way of dealing with major crime. The Normans also thought that was a decent way to get rid of naughty folk, and they kept the gallows as a punishment. Although the records of people being hanged in Lewis aren't too plentiful, the number of people going to the gallows after 1066 increased considerably. Until the mid-1600s, felons were locked up in the castle, then taken down the road a bit to this place, Gallows Bank. There is evidence that this was where the gallows stood from Saxon times to the mid-19th century. When hangings were no longer done in public, hangings didn't stop. They just weren't done in public. They were moved to Lewis Prison. But they were public until 1868, and huge crowds would turn up just to watch somebody being hanged. In fact, the modern term Gala Day comes from such occasions, previously known as Gallows Day. Chasing around Lewis can be a tiring affair, so I sometimes take a breather and come to this little corner of a park near the centre of Lewis. It's called the Knot Garden. I had no idea what a knot garden was until I spoke to a gardening expert. It's a garden of symmetrical design, as you can see. These breathers give me a chance to think about some of the stories we reported on, thought about, perhaps even enjoyed. I've just come from Lewis Prison. I've reported many times on the Russian prisoners held in the old naval prison. It's hard to forget them because there's a monument erected to them in the churchyard of one of our churches, St. John sub Castro. These prisoners seem to have overshadowed the 300 Finnish prisoners who were held in the new Lewis prison. They were from the same Crimea War in 1853. They fared better than their Russian counterparts in the old naval prison because they were repatriated quite quickly, and history seems to have forgotten them. One of the Russian prisoners went over the wall and caused a nationwide manhunt. When he was eventually found, he was in a pub just next door to the prison having a tot of rum. He'd forgotten just how nice it was to have that glass before his bedtime, so he went and found one.
Norman justice was pretty fierce and pretty swift. But they did introduce an early version of the 12-man jury system. So the baddies of yesteryear were given some sort of chance. While hanging was the flavour of the day, there was also a way of avoiding being strung up if you chose trial by ordeal. I must say, I think that trial by ordeal was thought up by a mischievous bookmaker. Certainly the odds were heavily stacked against the victim. There was trial by fire, trial by water, and trial by combat. By fire, the accused had to pick up a red-hot poker or bar. If the wound healed, then the verdict was innocent of all charges. But if infection set in, then guilt was proved, and he returned to the noose. By water, the accused was bound hand and foot, thrown into the pond and told to swim.
No breaststroke, just bubbles. Innocent. Sorry about that.
The ducking stool was a more genteel version for ladies, but the results were much the same. Float, guilty, off to the gallows. And if you were well bred, you had the best odds of the lot. Noblemen would fight often to the death in combat with their accuser. The winner of the battle would be considered to be the one that was right. It was 1215 when trial by ordeal was replaced by trial by jury. 12 good men and true. The castle as a prison wasn't a huge success. A number of prisoners went in through the front door and then decamped via the back to the river in the hope of catching a boat out of town. When the economy of Lewis, usually robust and lucrative, became depressed in the 14th century, there was an epidemic of less serious crime. People became desperate during these hard times, and in 1396 the parson of St. John's was charged with robbery from Hamsey Church, but was later granted a king's pardon. The stocks were deemed to be a lesser punishment. On one occasion in Lewis, in the 13th century, the bishop ordered a knight to be punished by carrying the stocks through the town streets and into a church, because the knight had dared to throw a member of the clergy into his dungeon. The Lewis stocks stood next to the gallows.
I don't think this was by accident. The Normans figured that the sight of ghoulish punishment would act as a deterrent.
Sitting in the stocks would have given lesser villains an opportunity to view dead men dangling from the rope, bodies rotting in the gibbet, or people hobbling around, limbs severed, mutilated as a punishment.
It's a bit uncomfortable sitting here in the stocks. I wouldn't want to spend a whole night here. It would make a man a bit stiff on a chill evening. But my main punishment was being kept out of the pub all night with nothing to drink but water.
But the main punishment was ridicule, of course.
In those days, a fate worse than death. The stocks outlasted the gallows as a public spectacle. They didn't disappear until 1872. Some historians claim that this punishment has never been removed from the law books, and indeed, there are still some American states where being consigned to the stocks remains on the statutes. So tourists beware. Having cabbages thrown in your face, your feet tickled, and spending a cold night with legs locked up is hardly the holiday of a lifetime. At last, I'm out of the stocks. Time for a drink. Ordeal by beer. Bliss. Always fancied myself as a
Okay, and welcome back. I have here with me Liza Page. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well,
We couldn't do the show
couldn't
yesterday
do the
because
show.
you were sicky, weren't you?
I was sick and you weren't feeling great either, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Well, neither of us was feeling too well, so we
Uh,
delayed it by a day, and I'm
yeah.
feeling a bit better today. Still not 100% back to my normal self, but should be by the weekend is over.
It's very
I'll
good
have
of
a
you
nice
to come
time.
in. It's good
Yeah.
of you to come in.
Yeah.
Really is. But I'm sure the viewers out there appreciate it.
I'm sure they do, yes. I need to change our name. I need to change Keith's name. I'll do that in a minute. How have you been?
Pretty good. Been doing a hell of a lot of studying. The real Anthony Fauci. Yes.
Yeah.
This is quite a little elf, I can tell you. The book is by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. A fantastic man.
Yeah, he is. He's the nephew of JFK.
Yes, absolutely.
He's the-
I mean, they killed
He's the last, got to be the last surviving Kennedy now.
Yes, and they killed his father too.
They did, and he's probably the most outspoken one. I don't know how
Yes,
he's
and
not.
a lot of the Kennedy clan. Also, they killed his nephew too. That terribly handsome JFK Jr. You know,
Well, they're all, or pretty much all of them are terribly handsome.
good-looking family.
Yeah.
But since he's been writing these books and taking up this incredible cause of these vaccinations for right from little children to the present day, I think a lot of his family don't want to know him. So I suppose they think it's bad politics, whatever, but he doesn't care, and he's pushing on, and he is magnificent. And this book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Now, you and I know of these people because we're into a different vein of life, but your average public hasn't got a clue as to who Anthony Fauci is. They probably don't even know who Bill Gates is.
Well, they know who Bill Gates is. He's the computer guy.
Yeah, the computer guy from that. Because the thing is, and it's not their fault that they are so grossly uninformed. It's because the only form of communication, education-wise, is the BBC.
Yeah.
and its spin-off channels, which are just as bad. And
of course, they'll cover for them.
They'll cover for them. And the press will, there's no journalists out there worth their salt anymore that will
No mainstream journalists, at
will
least.
take on these and talk radio and talk television thing. They don't want to know. I mean, they won't mention it because they're owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is all part of this cabal, which is to dehumanize people and put them under the Chinese regime of the New World Order, which is the most frightening and terrifying thing that can happen to a civilization. And all this business with Fauci, little guy, little dictator, little bully, worked his way up.
He worked his way up. He was the highest paid person in government. He was paid more than the US president.
Yes.
Which is insane.
Yeah,
the US president is supposed to be the highest paid person in government, but he was.
Absolutely. And during the AIDS pandemic, he slaughtered millions and millions of people.
He did, yeah. Well, with his salary, with his salary, that goes to show how powerful of a person he is in government.
Absolutely. And the drug he gave them was AZT, which had he gave this to AIDS sufferers, and it killed them in a horrible, horrible, agonizing fashion. And that AZT was discovered many years ago, and they said this is total poison. They gave it to rats and died. And they said you can't possibly give this to a human being. He did. He dug it up and gave it to people. Now with this pandemic, so-called pandemic that we have been going through, he has been financing with American dollars Wuhan, China, the
virology lab.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no, I haven't. Oh, yes, you have. And there's enough proof. And then these vaccinations, which are killing millions of people and making them ill for life if they don't kill them, he is responsible for. So now that is two lots. How in the world can the American public stand for this?
Well, even so, not just the American public, but here, directly, right here where we are sitting, across the street, every 10 minutes, the 28 and 29 bus comes past. And what is on the side of those buses? Advertisements. And there's a few buses, there's quite a few actually, that say HIV isn't scary anymore.
Yeah.
You've seen them in person.
Yes.
I've seen them in person. You've probably got on that bus, as I have to every morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I haven't taken a photo of it, but I will do the next time I see it. I mean, it comes past every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. HIV isn't scary anymore. Of course it is. It's AIDS. It's a deadly disease.
Yeah. And he has been treating these AIDS people with this killing them, and he knew it would. And us with these injections for a disease that is nothing more than the flu.
Yeah.
How can people stand for this? The American public can't possibly be that naive. But then they obviously are.
They are. But
because so are we. So are we. We've been standing for it. Now, I mean, that monster Hancock killing elderly people and not so elderly people with his Madresalam or whatever it is. I mean, he stood and ordered it from the French before any pandemic was ever declared, knowing exactly what he was going to do. Now, this is on record. Why aren't these people arrested?
Because of how powerful they are. That is the reason. That's why they're not arrested.
But there are more of us. There are more of us than there are of them, as David keeps on saying.
Yes.
And we have to say no.
You're right, but there are more of us than there are of them. but there aren't enough of us who are aware of what's really going on.
No, because we are not educated enough, because they won't allow us to
But
be
here's the thing,
educated
we
enough.
really go out of our way to find this information.
Yes,
And the regular person who's got a 9-to-5 job, who's raising a family, doesn't have the time to do that sort of thing. We have had the time to really go in depth in these subjects. Most people don't.
but most people don't, because they can't be bothered.
Yes.
Oh no, I rely on my government. You see, I voted for them, and they'll tell me what to do, and they'll take care of me, and they'll poison me when it's necessary. Or, I said, you'll read a David Icke book, and you'll have just one, and you'll have your whole education there. No, you see, I can't afford the time. I said, well, look, all the money, these books are expensive. I said, well, the most expensive one is 20 quid, I think. And, if you haven't got the time to read it, don't go away for a holiday. Spend that time that you would spend going to Benidorm or some other godforsaken second place
Even
on a
if,
plane, hours, and, push and shove it. Take that time and educate for yourself for life. And then you are protecting your children.
you do have enough time, like just read, even if it's like 3 or 4 pages before you go to bed.
Yeah.
If you can do that. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I struggle immensely with reading.
Yes, but you have got an education.
Yes,
and you are
because
handicapped.
Yes, I am.
No, because you are dyslexic. That is a
Yes.
handicap. And people seem to be ignoring that.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, no, not too much is done about it.
I do. It does make me feel odd when people say it's a disability. Like, you're technically, yes, but when I think of disability, I think of people in wheelchairs.
Yes, but I mean, if you can't get the information, if you can't read properly, then
Well, here's the
you're
thing, I
not
do
getting
have
an
the
education,
information.
are you? Yes.
I do have the information, and I am so thankful for the internet. As much as I hate it sometimes, and
Yes.
it's a disgusting, horrible place,
But nevertheless, you have
I've
found the right people.
I've found the right people. I mean, I've been listening to Alex Jones since I was 14 years
Mhm.
old, which is, God, it's quite something, to be honest.
Absolutely.
So I've been like subtly aware of these things, and then the pandemic came around. 2020 happened. I was like, whoa!
Oh, and you were
Everything
prepared
he
for it.
was
Thank
saying.
God. Thank God you were prepared for it.
Otherwise, I would have just been like anyone else, getting the jab.
Certainly.
But it is a very it has become a very divisive thing. The vaccine. Oh, you're not vaccinated?
Well, no, and the unvaccinated are penalized the way the Jews were in the last World War. You see, it
Yeah.
worked then.
The
Stay away
worst-
from those people. They are vermin.
The worst place is New Zealand.
Oh,
God,
yes.
is it awful over there?
We got the Arden there, haven't you?
You do, yeah. Well, you can't even.
These people are all part of the cult.
Honestly, New Zealand is the worst. Right? If you don't know about it, seriously look into it. I'll briefly mention it. But New Zealand, if you are not vaccinated, you can't have a job.
No.
You can't go to work. You can, well, they'll give you the privilege of going to buy groceries. They do give you that privilege. But you have to have a card to buy it. And it's handed out by the government, and you're only allowed to buy a certain quantity of things and only a certain amount of things that are essential items. Bread, milk.
Well, this is the New
Tin
World Order,
cans.
isn't it? It's the New World Order.
Yeah.
Exactly the same
It
as what
really
they
is.
have in mind for us here all over the world.
I said this.
Except they're ahead of us.
I said this last week. Look at New Zealand. They are 10 to 15 years ahead of us, if that. If that. Look at what is going on in New Zealand now, and in 10 to 15 years, that's exactly what's going to be happening here.
Oh no, 5 years, darling. They're
By the
coming,
ma-
they are cantering.
By the magical year of 2030,
Yeah, that's what
where
they've been
everything's
saying.
going to happen.
25, and they'll have everything in place.
You'll own
Unless
nothing
we
and be
stop
happy.
them, unless we stop them. You will own nothing, but we own nothing now. And they're really taking the piss out of us because they're laughing. You say, you're worried about owning nothing? What do you own now? Nothing.
I don't own a whole lot now.
You don't own anything.
Not really, no.
If you buy a piece of land with a house on it or whatever, you have to register that. As soon as you register it, you don't own it. The government owns it. If you have a car, that car has to be registered, which means the government owns it. We own nothing. And now we don't even own ourselves.
No. And it's getting to the point where we can't even own our own opinions.
Exactly.
There are a lot of thought crime laws now.
Thought crime?
Not thought crime specifically yet, but, and I say yeah because it is coming. I've had a personal instance with the police where they come to check my thinking, which was
Listen, you said that. Tell that story again because that is most important in case someone didn't.
So this was in 2014. Not 2014, sorry, 2018, 4 years ago. Got them mixed up. And me and my friends had what was called a meme page. We had a bunch of jokes in a Google Documents file that we would share between each other and laugh. Most of them were silly, like Danny DeVito or Rick and Morty sort of TV shows, popular shows, jokes about them. I will admit, some of them were over the line. Some of them were a bit rude. But me and my friends had compiled about...
So it was a bunch of kids mucking around.
Yes, it was. Me and my friends had compiled about 300 memes, okay? And my deputy head teacher, assistant head teacher, she took 5 of them out of 300, and she called a terrorist task force on me because she thought I was going to be some sort of jihadi for the jokes that we were making. Keep in mind, they were jokes. I would never do anything like that. It's ridiculous. But the police came, the terrorist task force, and brought me in, and they said, we're here to check your thinking. We're trying to make sure you're not going to be a terrorist. Obviously, I'm not. Obviously. God, so stupid. But they came round, and even my mum at the time was like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe this. And they said, we want to put your son in therapy and counselling. And these jokes didn't deserve therapy or counselling. It was just being silly, kids being edgy humour.
Yes.
Everyone goes through a phase of this, at least the boys do. It was edgy humour, being silly, and joking around. And they wanted to put me in therapy and counselling for it. And my mum said, no, this is ridiculous. This is not a big deal. My son is clearly not a terrorist. But you know what the school did anyway? I didn't realise until afterwards what it really was, that they put me in counselling anyway without my mum's permission.
And that is on your record now.
Even though
that is on your record.
It is on my record. So what I have is potentially, it's very hard to find out, but potentially I have what's called a non-crime hate incident. So it goes on your record under Section 127 of the Online Communications Act. Anything grossly offensive will be put on your record as a non-crime hate incident. So what you did, it wasn't a crime, but we're going to put it on your record anyway, so any future employers can see that you have gone against the norm, and you're less likely to be hired because of it. I wondered at the time, I was like, why am I having such a trouble getting jobs? I was just applying at local places like the Co-op. I couldn't find anywhere, even though everyone was going on about, we need staff, we can't get staff. I couldn't get a job anywhere. Luckily, I got one here. But I do believe it was because they could see what was on my record. They have to do a background check. And when you see a non-crime hate incident, that's a big red flag that shows up.
Did you ask these people why you didn't get the job?
No, because they never even contacted me afterwards.
Yeah. Well, something's going on then, isn't it?
Something really is going on. And that's
Absolutely.
why I believe I had such a difficulty trying to find a job.
Yeah.
And I will do for the rest of my life.
Oh, yes, indeed, because that's the way it's worked out. And also, when the point system comes through, which is
my social credit will be very low,
will be
and
very
so will
low.
yours.
Oh, well, forget me at my age. Oh,
Minus
come on,
3
on that
million
bus
social
for you.
credit points.
Yeah.
You want to get the Chinese government.
Chinese government, yeah. And so they say, right, well, you can't buy any food. You can't come in here because, you haven't got enough points. So what do? You starve to death.
Yeah.
And that is what they want, especially at my age. I mean, this ghastly little fellow. Oh, my God. He's Klaus Schwab's little helper. Somebody, Harari, is it?
Somebody who?
Harari.
I recognise the name.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
It's a three name.
She's got a pile of notes
here we are.
here.
Here we are. Yuval Noah Harari.
Okay.
Says he's Klaus Schwab's little helper. He's out of Israel. And he says, well, eventually we'll be able to tap into the brain and know everything you are thinking, and you will be attached to the cloud, and we will be able to tell your thoughts. And also we will tell you if you have any disease, if you're gay or if you're not. Well, I don't think you need someone to tell you whether you're gay or not. I think you know yourself, don't you? Anyway, that's beside the point. And he said, of course, we will be able to do that. If they say we will be able to do it, they can do it now.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Never ever be fooled by that. If they say in the future we'll be able to, no, you are already doing it now. And he said also there won't be enough room for everyone, so people will have to be eliminated. The guy is there just talking. They're not even trying to cover it up anymore. Before it was like, this is hidden information. No,
it's not.
No. And then you got Bill Gates came and said, they're saying I want to put microchips in people. Why would I want to do that?
Oh, yeah, why would he?
I mean, he's talking, like he's talking to a bunch of little kids. That's what he's doing. Totally taking the mickey. Very, very, very unlovely, the whole situation.
And they've always got that smirk on their face.
Oh, yes, God. yes, indeed. Now, I got a little bit excited since I met you. I saw on the net that Italy, there's a woman called Maloney.
Yes, I've been reading about her.
Yes,
very
and
interesting.
I was very, very interested in her, and I loved the spirit and the whole thing until she turned around and said, and we will have vaccination passports. And I said, you lady. Now then, listen, she is a disciple of Mussolini, who you wouldn't remember, but I remember very well indeed. And I would like to remind this lady.
I don't think she's a disciple of Mussolini.
She favors him.
Yeah.
But she is also a member of the WEF.
Of course she is.
Of course she is.
Of course she is.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't she be?
They've just got a new stooge in there, you see. And I would like to remind this lady, though, when she praises Mussolini, he was around for about 6 years, and then they hung him and stuck his balls in his mouth. I would remember
really?
that, yes. Yes,
wait,
indeed.
when was this?
This was in my lifetime.
Was this in, 1946? It would have been?
Yes, yeah.
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 The
I
year
remember
after the
it
war.
very well.
Really? You
Yes,
remember it?
because
Wow.
they had some photographs or something.
Oh, God.
And my sister was, my oldest sister was, dying to look through to see if she could find a picture of, what they'd done to him. Whether she did or not, I don't know, but I do distinctly remember. And I would advise the Maloney lady to remember that because, when the public get angry and they get wised up, they do tend to do nasty things to people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's taken too long to bring these people to book. Much, much too long. I mean, these are walking maniacs and should have been done away with a long time ago.
I'm sure at some point we had a very good opportunity to, and we missed it.
Yeah.
And hopefully another one will come around. But
Well,
I'm not
once they
hopeful.
take away this money and get onto this point system,
Yeah,
it becomes very,
me and
very
Keith
difficult.
were talking about it earlier. Canada's already got rid of the pennies.
Yeah, it's been very,
Or it's
very,
the
very,
cent.
very,
there.
very difficult.
1 cent and 2
indeed.
cent coins.
Yeah. And but some people stand for it, but you see, most people don't know.
Most people don't care. They go, oh, yeah, no one really uses 1s and 2p's anyway. So, yeah, we'll just get rid of them. And, oh, well, we'll get rid of 5p. Oh, we'll get rid of... And then before you know it, oh, yeah, we may as well get rid of cash. No one uses it anyway. And then, oh, we're all on card. Oh, hang on a minute. My bank account's been frozen. I can't feed my family. Whoops. Should have thought about this one.
There we go. Yeah, yeah. Oh, very, very distressing. The good news is they've done away with this Tavistock thing that you said you can still get it on the national.
No. So
The
let me explain that
yes,
quickly.
please do.
Because I looked into this for a lot. Oh, be careful of your foot. You just
Yes, sure.
get the wire. Sorry, let me get this back in place. There we go. So the Tavistock. I'm struggling with speaking today. So the Tavistock Clinic was shut down. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Tavistock Clinic was, it was a gender reassignment surgery place where you could transition. You're not able to physically transition under 18 anymore. That changed about a year ago, not even. But Scotland, you're still allowed to transition medically, I think, from 14, which is, again, a life-changing decision. Do you think you could make a massive life-changing decision that would affect the rest of your life at the age of 14?
It's ridiculous.
No, obviously not. I don't think I can do that now.
Ridiculous.
I don't think I could make a massive life-changing decision right now.
Of course not.
I'm only 18, and I didn't.
Well, at any age, I would. No. I'm sorry. The only thing is, David Icke has made a film of this called No Going Back. And it's getting quite a bit of attention, which is marvelous. Naturally, he'll show it on Icke Alternative, which is a fantastic program, which I'm always praising. But he's also, they're mentioning it on talk radio too, which is most unusual for them.
That is unusual. I have seen more mainstream places talking about detransitioners, because there's a lot of times people get transitioned from a very young age, and what would you guess? They regretted it.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Terribly.
made a bad life-changing decision at the age of 14. Who would have guessed?
And don't they have to live on medication
For the rest of their lives,
And then eventually that medication is not going to work because the body becomes so used to it.
Yeah.
Like all medications.
Or especially with antibiotics.
Yes.
That's a scary one.
Yeah.
There are already bacteria that are becoming immune to
I feel
antibiotics.
so sorry for those people. I really do. And the dreadful things that they're doing to these little tiny children. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
What do you want to be, a boy or a girl? Do you like pink or do you like blue? If you like pink, then you've got female tendencies.
Well, there we go. Well, when I was young, my favorite color was purple. I just liked it. It was a nice color. I still like it. It's a good color. Does that mean I'm a woman? No, of course not. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
So I'm glad I grew up just at the cutoff point for that.
Like, I'm glad you did.
Just at the. Otherwise, I would have had something else cut off.
Don't even talk about things like that.
Anyway,
Max, I made a mistake on your show. Two goes back. I said that there was an article by, I said, a Richard Green, and it was a big mistake on my part. It was by a man called Richard Day.
Richard Day.
Yes, you remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
What article was that?
It was in all David Icke's books, and now it's out on the internet. And he was a gynecologist dwelling with the group, and he said, "I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future." This was in 1969. I also said it was 1968. Now, I do apologize for this. And And
That's all
he
right.
said how it is going to be in the future. And he said there will be no male, there will be no female.
Yeah,
Children
I
will
can
be
believe
born out of test tubes. There will be no making love. There will be no orgasm. There will be no kindness.
We're already losing that one.
No kindness, no compassion, and digital money, naturally, and great punishment if you didn't follow the orders. All this was described in 1969. And he said we can cure practically all disease now. He said that.
It was written in 1969.
69.
What year was this predicting to be?
I don't know.
Remember.
But it was, not that long. He said it's not going to take that long to do it. I remember. Listen, I shouldn't come on here unless I have my facts totally correct. But I know it was Richard. Richard didn't go through my notes.
It's got a big.
Because
big bunch of
by
notes.
now I would think the Dr. Richard Day.
Dr. Richard Day.
By now, I would think that they have taken it down off of the internet because that would
I would presume.
educate people too much. But you can find it in every
Educate people too much.
Yeah, you can find it in every single one of David Icke's books, which he's been predicting
Really?
30 years. Hence, all this stuff that is happening, he's been predicted and a long time ago. And he's not getting the credit for it.
That does sound like an interesting article. I will have to try to find that.
Yes, please do.
By Dr. Richard Day.
Dr. Richard Day in 1969.
Okay. Cool.
And he was a gynecologist who stood up and said, I'm going to tell you the way the world's going to be. Turn off all your machines, but a couple didn't.
Well, speaking of the gender aspect, I wanted to quickly go back to the Tavistock clinics.
Yes.
So the government has shut down the Tavistock clinics, and I thought, hooray! They're stopping the Tavistock clinics because they were essentially grooming children to become transgender. And I thought, great, this is gone now. But then what's happened is, whilst the Tavistock clinics themselves that have gone, and there was a Tavistock clinic in Brighton, of course.
Uh-huh.
But what's happened now they're gone is hospitals now have their own transgender ward. So instead of being one centralized place, it's now all decentralized. So you'll have one in Brighton Hospital, London Hospital, Birmingham Hospital, Liverpool Hospital. You'll have it all over, dotted around the place instead of one specific place. So you can no longer pinpoint it. So actually getting rid of those Tavistock clinics have actually been a real big mistake, actually.
Really?
Mm.
Oh boy. I can't even comprehend how bad things are now and how bad they are going to get if we allow it.
I think I've mentioned this to you already, but I was talking to my younger sister the other day, and you learn sex education as young as year 3 and year 4. In some parts of anything in Scotland, you learn in year 2. But year 2, how old are you in year 2? You're what, 6 or 7?
And also, when the very young children get curious about one another, they mess about and play doctors and nurses and all things like that.
They do play doctors
this
and nurses.
Is part of growing up. And I'm sorry, I can't even comprehend it. And I'm so glad I'm the age that I am. In a few years, I'm going to be out of here because I couldn't face what's coming. And you're young. You've got your whole life ahead of you, and I don't see it being pretty.
No, I'm not very hopeful for the future.
But what we're doing here,
if you look at the rest of my generation, they're idiots. They're idiots. They're just brainwashed by TikTok. They're just scrolling through.
which is owned, you said, by China.
Owned
TikTok.
by China, yeah. Owned by I can't remember the parent company, but they own a few other things, games that you can download on your mobile phone. We Social. Anyway, don't take that properly because I can't remember the exact name for the parent company, but they own lots of things, more than just TikTok. They own stakes in lots of companies as well. They're now even having stakes in car manufacturers, and Chinese car brands are now coming to Europe. Sweden has had lots of Chinese cars now. We're getting them. I'm seeing them on the road now, like Wulings, they're called, some of them. And they obviously have the microphones in them as well. So not only is it being tracked by your phone, by the apps that you use, now when you get in your car is tracked, and the conversations you have in private. Because the car, if you're driving down the road, the best place to have a private conversation is there because no one else can hear you.
Yeah.
Except the Chinese government.
Yeah. And now, if they're hacking into our brains so they know what we're thinking before we even think, well, what chance do we have?
They can.
And I'm sorry, but your man Elon Musk, he's part of the cult, darling. Sorry, my angel.
I don't want to accept it.
Sorry, very sorry. No, he is part of the cult. Anybody that will make these 5Gs, he's controlled. He's controlled. Where would he have the energy to keep making all these things? Oh, well, I get ideas, and then suddenly, boom, boom, they're all up and working. And these micro homes that they want to put us into, these high rises and little tiny spaces, who's making those? Elon Musk is making the micro homes.
Is he?
Oh, yes, indeed.
He has investments in some companies, yeah.
Well, no, he's sitting in it saying, I've sold my places now.
Well, yeah,
and
he has a tiny home.
Yeah. And these 5Gs
I
that
certainly
they're
don't
putting
believe that he lives in a one-bedroom or tiny home in Florida. I'm like, do you now?
No, I tend not to believe that even, my dear. But these 5Gs, treacherous things that they're putting up. They have no idea the damage that it's going to do for our health, and it makes it easier to track us and to manipulate us.
Well, that's the thing you say. They have
dehumanize us. That is what they are trying to dehumanize the human race, and they are coming on very, very quickly. Listen, I will bring in one of my David Icke books next time, and I will read that, Dr. Dave.
Yeah. Well, I can try to find the original article. Eventually.
Let me know if you do. If you don't, then I will come in and I will read it on here.
Okay. Well, shall we take a little breather? Shall we go to the Potter's Wheel and then Scenes in Sussex just to take a short break?
Yes, because I think we're exhausting our audience too. Sorry.
It's
sorry, darlings.
It's a hard conversation to have, but
but you've got to learn because your life depends on it.
Certainly. All right, we'll go to Scenes in Sussex and then the Potter's Wheel. Okay, we will go. Sorry, I didn't click it in time. We'll go to the potter's wheel just for a minute extra breather. So we'll go to that now. We'll be back in a minute.
Yeah.
Ow! I just smacked my wrist. I am
Oh, pain.
I fractured my wrist and I just
Poor lamb.
smacked it like an idiot. Anyway, we're back. I think you wanted to go into the Kuthars and Philangong people.
Yes.
I want to.
Whoops.
Whoops. Sorry, do you mind if you move your foot?
No. Did
There
I
we
do
go.
that?
Yes. Let me just unplug
Responsible, I'm
this.
so sorry.
Don't
I
worry.
tend to fidget around here. Forget how tiny that screen is.
My bad. I'm just unplugging the wire so it doesn't get stepped on again. Sorry about that.
Okay. Are we on? Yes. Yes.
So I
we
want
are.
to make a quick distinction. You're going to talk about the Kuthars. Who are they?
The Cathars.
The Cathars.
The Cathars. They were. I'm not an authority on this. I promise you, but they were a religious organization. Very gentle people, apparently, and very good. Their laws were, very humane, very good. And the Catholic religion took a real dislike to them and proceeded to try to do what Hitler did. He tried to slaughter every Jew on the planet. And the Cathars tried to do that too. And they almost succeeded, really, because in Languedoc, in south of France, they killed, I think it was 60,000 in one day. They slaughtered them, burnt them to death.
The Catholics did that.
The Roman Catholics did that.
When was this?
This was in, I think, the 11th century.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And just to make a distinction between those people, the Cathars, there is a very similar sounding word that also has a religious meaning. So you're talking about the Cathars. There's another word called the Kuthars.
Mm-hmm.
One's an F, the other word is a TH. So very similar and easy to get mixed up. But Kuthars are what Muslim people call non-Muslim believing people. So they would say, oh, look at that dirty Kuthar. He doesn't believe in the Muslim religion.
Oh, yeah.
So they're both religious meanings. They sound very similar, but they're very different. One is peaceful and the other is Muslim. So...
Well, it might have some connotations somewhere down the line, mightn't it?
Yes, well, they do say Islam is a religion of peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not really into religion, as you
No.
know, as such. I find what happens to religious people very interesting, though just because they happen to believe in something that I don't believe in. I mean, I wouldn't dream of killing them or really trying
obviously
to. I
not.
mean, or even saying I don't want to be your friend or anything.
I've never quite understood why there has been so much hatred towards specifically the Jewish people, because they're very nice people. They work incredibly hard. They're lovely people, and they're very family orientated, which is one of the best things to have.
Absolutely.
That's why they're so successful. They have a strong family bond.
Yes.
But one of the main reasons why they're disliked so much is because they don't have their own place. They don't have an original country they're from. So wherever they go in the world, even Israel, wherever they go in the world, they are not native there. So naturally, people go, "Oh, you're not from here. We don't like you." So that's why one of the main reasons they're disliked, because everywhere they live.
And also, they're very clever people too.
They are very clever, yeah.
Very, very, very clever people. They've had to be clever to survive.
Yeah.
Means of survival, isn't it? But regarding the Cathars, yes, they practically so. And Hitler was very, very interested in the Cathars religion because he said they had some knowledge that he wanted, and he really did a lot of tracing back to the Cathars. Whether he succeeded in finding knowledge, I don't think he did. But there is now another organization, religion, called the Falun Gong people.
They're still around.
Very, very much so. And the Chinese are petrified of them. This started off, I believe, in China. And they do exercises in the park, which seemed to bring energy into them before they went to work. And they would all join up, do these exercises before they went about their labor. Also, China slaughtered many, many young Falun Gong in Tiananmen Square.
So those are the Falun Gong people.
They were Falun Gong people in the main. Now, if you are now, and they are now that this has spread all over the world, this Falun Gong religion, and they are turned the cheek, they're totally unviolent. It's, if you thump them or something, they will not defend themselves, they will not react. And I can't really see to join a Falun Gong, you mustn't drink and you mustn't smoke. Those
I'm not joining them.
No, well, they wouldn't have me, I'm sure. But this is one of the stipulations, and they advocate love and all good things. And they sort of join up all over the world. And the Chinese said, no, we can't have this. So they round them up and they put them in prison, and a lot of them die there. And organizations are trying to help them to get them out. But I was just wondering if the Falun Gong is like a reincarnation of the Cathars. Food for thought.
Yeah. Sorry, that's very strange. I was just trying to search up Tiananmen Square massacre to see exactly when it happened. But strangely, Google really gave me some trouble trying to find it.
Would do, wouldn't it?
Oh, isn't that strange?
Yeah, it's very strange, yes.
So we have here the Tiananmen Square massacre happened in 1989. Do you remember why? I'm trying to find out how many people died.
Hello, you two.
Hello, but Google doesn't want to tell me that either. Strange, that one.
You see, because
How
the
many
Chinese
people
don't
died
want
in
this
Tiananmen Square massacre?
new. Sorry.
No.
Any
around 200.
200, huh?
Yeah. For peacefully protesting.
Yeah, for peacefully protesting. Yeah, and they mowed them down. I think there's even film of it.
Yeah, there is.
Really tragic, because
where the
also this
famous-
new world order that is coming in, which is very, very Chinese, you see. They don't want any religion at all.
No, they don't, which is
No
what the Soviet
religion
Union wanted to
whatsoever.
do. That's why Russia today is a very non-religious country, and most of Eastern Europe was because the Soviet Union wanted to wipe out religion.
Yes.
Why do they want to wipe out religion? Because it brings strong family bonds.
Yes.
Strong family ties.
Certainly.
And why would they want to get rid of that? Isn't that
Because
strange?
people who don't have a religion are easier to control.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
everything is about
You put
control.
You put that perfectly. You couldn't have put it better.
Yeah.
It's
This
they,
is-
they
this- this
you're
is
easier
it.
to control
Mm.
when you're not religious.
Yes. And if you have no love, no compassion, you're also easier to control.
Which is why America has stood up to a lot of this. Not that much, I'll be honest, but America does have a. Sorry, I had the hiccups. America does have a very large religious population, whereas here it's almost nothing. I know very few religious people. I know almost none. You would think all the older people in life that you know would be all religious because that was from their time period.
Mhm.
You would go to church, do the Sunday school, do everything.
Mhm.
But most of the old people in my life, none of them are religious.
I think it's because they have seen such atrocities in the war with,
Yeah.
young boys sent off, the last war, by maniacs who didn't know what they were doing, might go over there, 2,000 of you, and they were totally massacred, didn't stand a chance.
Well, there
When
was
you see atrocities like that, I think you turn around and you say, where was God?
you heard a lot about that in the Vietnam War from
Mm.
soldiers that came out. If there was a God, why would any of that happen?
Yes.
And a lot
And
of
that was a very,
that-
very unpopular war.
that was
Incredibly so.
and
And
that was
also,
the first television war.
yeah, well, yeah, because,
It was.
you could see before you used to get a telegram. If you lost someone, now you could see them get shot on television.
You can,
know?
you really can.
Whew.
It's awful.
Well, I think all wars are terrible. They're dreadful.
Well, they did so.
And it's all for money.
It is.
Right
It
from the
is.
Dark Ages, it was over money.
I know people who want to go into the army. I'm like, you're going to be sent over to the Middle East, and you're going to be guarding the oil.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be fighting for this country. You're going to be going to some terrible third world desert country where you're just going to be guarding oil.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's very interested in Russia as well. Obviously, they're doing very bad things at the moment. That's obvious, but they have a hell of a lot of oil. They really do. They have a lot of natural resources.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And so does Canada, too. There is really no shortage of anything.
No, not, yeah, you are right, but they're very focused on. Oh
It's all
well,
money.
it is all money.
So,
I would never want to. I will never in my life join the army, and I will say this now, even when it comes to World War III, if that ever happens in my lifetime, I will be a draft dodger.
No, well, I think a lot of people would feel exactly the same way of you, and I think the governments know that.
I'm
Too.
not, because I see it as I'm fighting for two world leaders who are having an argument
Yeah.
about whatever it might be, usually oil. Usually oil. It's never anything meaningful like what's going on in China right now with their concentration camps with the Uyghur Muslims. Oh no, we won't go to war for that. Oh, Russia. They did a bad thing. They invaded Ukraine. They also have quite a bit of oil. Maybe we'll go there.
Yeah.
I will never join the military.
No, so it's all total
Absolutely
big
against
business.
it.
With the last World War was organized and financed by 5 wealthy families who sat around a table and said, how can we make some money? War's always profitable. This chap Hitler is making a bit of noise. We'll finance him. And these families financed Hitler, built him up to where he nearly took over the world. And that was all planned with the First World War. Well, we did it wrong there, so let's have another go, second go.
What was do you remember what the atmosphere was like during World War II? How was everyone's feelings towards the Germans?
Well, we were.
Was it like a deep hatred?
Yes, because they were coming over and bombing us, and you would hear the planes coming, and it was when they stopped That was when they were dropping the bombs. You didn't hear the planes, just when they were dropping the bombs, and you didn't know if it was going to drop on you, your neighbor, or wherever. It was Russian roulette. And yes, and of course we were trained. Hello.
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 Did you both go through training at school, like hiding under your desks and sort of thing during World War II?
Well, I was too young, and so was Keith. We weren't even in school then.
What about your older sister? Would they have had that sort of training?
Here's
what to do in case.
Possibly, but that I don't know. But we did have our own air raid shelter in our home, and I remember my mother waking me up and carrying me downstairs, and to interrupt my sleep like that was horrible for me as a child. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Come on, darling, we got to go. And we had to go. We had a mattress and this air raid shelter over us.
Did everyone have an air raid shelter,
No.
or was it a community thing?
No. Well, in London they didn't, but in the Shires, everybody had an Anderson shelter
Did
made
you
out
have
of
one?
tin. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was what we had.
Yeah.
But they used to sleep in London in the underground
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
night. And it must have been dreadful.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible. We were so
What?
lucky to be down here where we were.
Yeah, well, my great grandparents lived in Suffolk, so they were okay.
Yes.
They lived in
Would you
the
keep an eye
absolute
open,
middle of
please,
nowhere.
for Melissa?
Yes, I will do.
She hasn't popped up yet.
No. Well, you said 10:30.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
10:30.
I'll keep an eye.
Okay.
I'll let you know. So we might wrap up soon, and then Melissa
Yes,
will
of
join
course,
us.
yes.
But if not,
I've got to go somewhere anyway,
okay. Well,
and I'll come back.
okay. Is there anything that you specifically want to leave off on? Is there anything you want to drive home
Yes.
before you leave?
Don't stand for it. Don't stand for them taking away our money. What they can do, this trust woman, she's fallen at the first fence, which I knew she would. The
Yeah.
only possible chance she's got is wiping off the entire debt of the country and everybody in it. Then she might just make a name for herself.
But that's not going to happen, is it?
It can. Oh, yes,
Oh,
it
it-
can. It can. But
hypothetical-
whether
okay.
she's got the guts or the balls to do it or not, I don't know. But I have no regard for these people, whatever. But if she did that, I might give her the time of day.
Well, I've heard some things online because she likes to compare herself and say Margaret Thatcher is my idol.
Yeah.
Margaret
Margaret Thatcher would never have got us into this position.
Margaret Thatcher was named the Iron Lady. I've
This
heard
one,
people.
she's not, darling.
I've heard people name Liz Truss as the Iron Nanny. Well, thank you very much for watching. We'll go to a short break now.
Yeah, nice talking to you,
It
darling.
was
Get
lovely
yourself well and stop
Yes.
hurting yourself.
I will. Yes, that sounded quite bad, but I fractured my wrist.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Please tune in again next week, will you?
But I'll be
Thank
back
you.
soon. We're just going to go to a short break. Thank you very much.
Well, here it is back with me. He's a dull old chap after those two. Well, I'm actually anticipating that we will have Melissa Conte on from New York in just a minute or two. But in the meantime, I suppose really I should sort of bring you up to date with one or two of the things that are happening. As Mr. Max, Stuart is going to we'll talk to you after this program because we got a nice surprise guest for you, but it's going to be a filmed proposition with a gentleman who was the main photographer for Glyndebourne for many years. And Stuart is going to interview him, and Max is going to film him. And all in all, it should be a very interesting program. So that's in the works now, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I was just on the phone to Sarah Fitch Hayes. She is coming in today, and we will have her show out by next week. So excited for that. We're going to be filming that later today.
That's very good. Excellent. So things are moving ahead on that front, and all sorts of other things are transpiring in the background, which we'll let you know about as we go along. The day is pretty nice at the moment, but I am told that moving in as a weather front that has nothing to do with the horrific storm that they've had in the United States, and is its own storm, and it's going to batter us. Now, what I'm not clear about is whether we are then going to get the tail end of is it Ernest coming on top of that. But we are going to get some bad weather over the weekend coming in from the west, apparently hitting Scotland and Northern Ireland first, and then down to us in the southeast. So do be prepared for that. But the reason that I'm mentioning our bad weather coming in is because some of the pictures now coming out of Florida show communities completely and utterly devastated. I mean, whole communities, whole towns devastated by this storm. And it just shows just how powerful Mother Nature can be when she gets going. And there is very little, if anything, that man can do about it. And it's a bit of a humbling experience when we keep on saying how we can alter this and we can alter that. And then the storm comes in and batters us almost to death. So the reason that I actually thought about it was that Melissa Conte, our correspondent in New York, said that she, for a while, lived in Florida.
She lived there for quite a few years.
Yeah, and that one of the things that she would never want to go back there and live is because it is subject to so many tropical storms. And when you read about Florida and you see everybody in great big spectacles, dark-colored glasses, and pouncing around on the beach, you tend to think of an absolute wonderland. But in fact, it has its downside, very much on its downside. And we don't think about those things sometimes when we're looking at the brochures. Another warning, I think, because I've had several people now say to me, I think I'm going to go and live somewhere else. It is a tough proposition. I'm somebody who's lived somewhere else all their life. I left home at 18 to go to Canada, and since then I've lived in another 58 countries. Yeah.
You told me that you spent half your life outside of the UK.
That's right. But not only just outside the UK, but moving from country to country and community to community.
Where's the longest place you've stayed then?
Northern Ireland.
Oh, really? How long were you there for?
15 years. 15 years. However, during that 15 years, I traveled extensively from my base in Northern Ireland. There was several places that went to and stayed for a period of time. So although I was based in Northern Ireland, one of the marvelous things while I was in Northern Ireland was that I got to fly on Concorde, and I flew on Concorde 6 times. And most people lusted after just getting on board once. So I was a very lucky boy in many ways. But the warning that I would give you is this. You have to be pretty tough to actually go and change your community. First of all, quite often people say, oh, yes, well, friends of mine are out there, or I met these people. They have their own lives. So the first thing you have to do is to integrate yourself into that community, starting from scratch. They'll be very nice and they'll be very helpful, but they are not going to change their way of life just because you've arrived on the scene.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Out of all the countries that you've lived in besides the United Kingdom, where would you say has been the best place that you would like to go back to?
Kosovo.
Kosovo.
Yeah.
Really?
Without a doubt.
What about Kosovo?
Well, first of all, I was lucky and they weren't, because I went there literally months after the war with Serbia ended, the Balkan War, and the place was in a dreadful mess. We were 4 hours on and 4 hours off in terms of heat. We had to go down to Macedonia quite often to get a bath in warm water, hot water. The pavements were cracking, the buildings were creaking, the manhole covers were not there. But there was a wonderful spirit of resurrection, of we'll fight this through, we'll get there. And we had, Muslims and Serbs in the main got along quite well together, even though traditionally that was the problem of the war. And so that sort of life was a very spirited life, and a life coming together to build a new community. And actually, I was in touch on an email the other day with one of my friends in Kosovo, and we relived those days when we had such a wonderful time. So you've disappeared, but I'm finishing my story for those of you who are watching in. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send, if you'll give me a moment or two, to Melissa again, and hopefully she'll get it. There we are. The little trick that we've got. To be able to do these things, and and here I am, and we will wait hopefully for Melissa. But one of the other things I was going to mention to Max is we can get dissatisfied with our society, but we get so used to the customs and the habits of our society that when we find that the customs and habits of people, even English-speaking people, are quite different, we have a sense of loss. A sense of isolation, and that's the thing that you have so much difficulty in getting over. Things just aren't the same at home. That's the whole point. So if you're thinking of moving away, be very sure you know what you're doing and you know where you're going. I had a very lovely aunt and uncle, both of whom have passed on now, so I'm not telling tales out of school, where they holidayed in Ireland and had a wonderful time. So they decided that that's where they would like to go and live. And they were isolated from family and friends. They did make some eventually over a period of years. But it was very, very, very tough going. And they regretted their decision. But they'd taken their redundancy money and their retirement money and so on and so forth, and ploughed it into some property in Ireland, so they couldn't actually turn around and go back. So it's one of those things that you really must worry about. And we'll see how you fare. But a word of warning. Having said that, many people do actually go abroad and they become very successful, and they are able to make a life for themselves. And eventually, there is nothing funnier in some ways as that somebody who spoke with, say, I don't know, let's say a Birmingham accent, because that's what I can do, is here, how do you think this is coming? And you actually bump into them in Canada and they say, hi there. Getting used to their change in the way of speech. And it's almost impossible not to change speech. I'm one of the very few that didn't when I was in Canada.
I am very surprised that you've kept your accent so well, considering how long you've spent out of the country.
Yeah, well, I do. Perhaps I don't know. Perhaps I work at it. I have no idea. But one of the things that I am very keen on is speaking the Queen's English. Now, that doesn't mean the English as spoken by the Queen, because I knew somebody who was very close to the palace and who spoke to the Queen regularly, and they said the royal family have got their own way of speaking. You don't say off, you say off. Off. But one of the things that this Queen's English is a standard English. If we're going to understand one another, if the man in John O'Groats is going to understand the man in Land's End, one in Cornwall, the other in northern Scotland, and they're going to be able to converse in what's called the English language, they may have variations, but it's got to broadly be so that they can understand each other. So having the standard of the Queen's English, as it's called, is very important in my book. Otherwise, what we'll do is be so regionalised that we won't be able to talk to each other.
Well, I can sort of see that already happening, to be honest.
To some extent, I think you're right. I am surprised, actually, that the BBC propagate this thing on the basis that, we've got to support regionalism. Yeah, of course you support regionalism, but not to the point where people sort of fall in love with their accent to the point they can't communicate with anybody. That doesn't anybody any good. There you are. That's one of the things that I get all excited about.
The Queen's English, that's a good. I want to talk about it because so many people
merely means a standard. That's all.
So many people don't speak like English. It seems they talk like you hear like even just up the road, people from Crawley, you get that like chav accent. Well, it's obviously a specific type of people, but you do get that sort of chav accent in certain places, and it's so just I can't understand it. Even I can't.
Well, there are a lot of people, you see, I mean, language and accent has become a very difficult thing. I mean, it is quite a lot of people who resent, privileged people or elite deliberately will not change their way of speaking to a sort of a norm because they resent the lifestyle, which, they believe is elitist or whatever. So there are many things that drive people for the way that they speak. The trouble is that communication has been lost amongst them.
And the abbreviations get on my nerves.
I suppose that there are some regional things. I mean, one of the things that you say about Canada, when I came back, is I picked up a number of little colloquialisms. For instance, I can remember saying, because I opened up a newsroom as the head of news at a radio station here in the UK. And I can remember saying to these people is, look, if you do that, you'll lose the whole ball of wax. And they looked at me in amazement. What the hell is he talking about?
Yeah,
and it's a common phrase in Canada to mean, everything thrown into one. And they couldn't understand what I was saying, and I had to become aware of that I was using colloquialisms to a certain extent. But anyway, enough on language. I think perhaps we may have lost Melissa this morning. I don't see her there, and perhaps she went back to sleep because she does get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to join us on our program. what were some of the other things that are in the paper this morning? Would you like to retrieve the paper, Max?
Where is it?
It's just on the table there.
Behind us.
Because we do try to bring you those things. Is one of the things that I noted this morning is that there is some speculation, and what I've been doing is I've been ranting and raving, and actually, strangely enough, a couple of people have said the same thing to me. Is that I say that we've got 650 people, all of whom are worthless. I'd get rid of the lot of them. Well, of course, it's a hyperbole, but what I do think is that we have a large number of people who are useless.
Well,
in
I
the
know
House of
Liza
Commons.
certainly agrees with you.
Yeah, well, and so do one or two more, actually, strangely enough. The fact of the matter is that they very much don't particularly like the way things are done at the top, as it were. In other words, their driving force is, am I going to get elected at the next election? And so they actually behave in a very defensive way. And what they've done in this particular case is got rid of Boris, put in Liz Truss, who's going to actually save everything. And now they're saying, I doubt if she'll last until Christmas. Crazy, absolutely crazy. And if that's our system, the system has to be revised. It really does. It's already said by a number of people, it is not fit for purpose. The trouble is that quite often people just then, their idea of not being fit for purpose is changed to proportional representation, which generally speaking is a complete and utter disaster. And actually, the Italians, under proportional representation, the Italians most certainly wouldn't have the government they've got at the moment. But then again, a lot of people say, well, they shouldn't have the government they've got at the moment. But it's the people's choice.
Oh, boy, do I have a story here. I can't believe this.
What's this one? Send the policeman to every break-in. All forces are told. Who told them?
The government. I assume. But
how realistic can you be? Yeah.
So the police haven't been turning up to all break-ins, which I definitely can believe. I phoned the police because I witnessed a burglary happen, and I'll be honest, I was a bit hesitant to phone the police, but I was like, well, I'll do it anyway. And they took ages to show up.
Well, in many instances, they haven't shown up at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a proper burglary as well. It was horrible. My neighbors got broken into. The back window was smashed. They smashed up their entire kitchen, their lounge, all the TVs, even the kids' PlayStations and Xboxes. Didn't actually steal much. They just smashed the house up.
Well, I must say, the thing that I've been burgled twice, and the police did show up eventually. But the thing that upset me the most is that somebody else had been in my house, and that violated my privacy. It was almost like being physically abused. In fact, if they'd have taken a poke at me, I'd have been happier than having somebody who I didn't know, who had come in, had looked through my things, had tried to see the way that I lived, and to actually disrupt that by actually stealing various things and taking them away.
How long ago did you get burglary?
Now I have to say that it was about 10 years ago that this happened.
Well, it's not that long.
No, not that long. Actually, I walked in on the burglar, and he rushed out of the French window that he'd broken to get in, and climbed over the wall. And I chased after him and yelled at him, and I've got rather a stentorian voice.
Yeah.
And it must have scared the hell out of him, because he scrambled up over the wall. I raced back through the cottage and went to the other side of the wall, but he'd already gone through the parking lot that's on the other side.
You know what? I would be terrified if you were to actually properly shout at me. I could not imagine how scary that would be. Obviously, you've been cross with me already, but if I were to be actually shouted at by you, I would be terrified.
Oh, my wife knew how to handle it. She just blacked my eye. Well, actually, Max, you'll be very pleased to know that I am blessed with just a very short temper. And on one occasion, a
short temper?
On one occasion, I was my wife was visiting me, or had come into the newsroom where I was head of news, and I gave a guy an absolute bollocking for something that he'd done.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I do. In those days, you used to do your voice pieces by putting a cartridge into a machine, and quite often, if the cartridge wasn't very precisely made, it wouldn't fire. It wouldn't. There'd be no recording, or it would be garbled. And I guess that's what had happened.
Oh no, were you interviewing someone important?
Well, it could have been. It could have been just a voice clip or whatever. But anyway, I mean, it's upsetting when you're in the middle of a newscast and the mechanics don't work.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went up this side of this guy and down the back, and he was quivering. And she said, "Listen, go and have a cup of coffee. Come back. He'll not only have forgotten that he shouted at you, he will have forgotten what it's all about. And not only that, he will actually have forgotten that it happened."
And did she?
Yeah. Just an explosive frustration that takes over. I'm nowhere near as bad as I was, by the way. You're all right.
Well, my mum, you know what? My mum used to be quite short-tempered and quick to anger until she started working with special needs people. She worked with adults with learning difficulties, and obviously you can't get cross with them and stressed out and shout at them because she was working with all sorts of people from severe disabilities to autism. You can't get mad at them. You can't shout and scream at them. You can be firm with them. And that job made her, even in her home life, so much of a more relaxed person. She changed completely with how she handled situations once she had that job, because at work it rubbed off at home.
Yeah.
She just stopped shouting at us and just had a conversation. It was like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Here's why. What can we do to solve it? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead of just, you shouldn't have done that, and screing.
Well, my big problem is that I forget it literally within minutes, and I don't hold a grudge. But what happens with other people is that they remember it, and you don't remember that you remembered it, and they can treat you in a very peculiar way, and you haven't a clue why. You don't remember that you actually hammered them to pieces. Dear. Anyway, let's just take a look at this for a moment. Send a policeman to every break-in. All forces are told.
So the story starts here.
Right. Police chiefs across Britain will be urged to send officers to every burglary. The head of the police training has promised.
Well, surely that should be their job anyway.
You
would think.
Yes, but the big problem is that law and order is always of great concern to politicians because they worry that they are actually going to get dumped on by the electorate if they don't actually do law and order. So they tend to exaggerate enormously. Now, in my day, I've written text, script for commercials and so on. And while I was in Northern Ireland, I actually did do some on the side, writing of radio commercials and newspaper headlines, not headlines, but advertising copy. And the agency that I worked for, or actually I didn't work for them, but I provided the stuff for them at a fee, were the recruiters for what was then the Royal Ulster Constabulary. It's now the police service in Northern Ireland. And the government said they were going to recruit another 1,000 people. And they said, this campaign that we're running, we'll perhaps get 5. Because you can make a lot of bluster about, yes, that's what we want. But in fact, in the police service in Northern Ireland at that particular time, there weren't too many people that were that keen, because policemen were being blown up and shot and killed. It wasn't exactly the most attractive proposition for a career. But the government had said it's 1,000, and that 1,000 sticks in everybody's mind. So the police got another 1,000. No, they didn't. They got another 5. So this sort of here, I do feel a bit sorry for the chief constables to have this dumped on them, because they may not be able to recruit enough policemen to meet that promise. I think, I'm not saying that it's a bad objective. It's a very difficult objective to reach. And I think that the politicians and the people who actually make these promises really need to think things through, so they know that they're making a fairly accurate promise or a fairly accurate statement, and that they can meet that without any difficulty. So I do feel a bit sorry for them. Having said that, I think that the police are spending much too much time on cybercrime. We had a little blackmailer on this morning. Whether he'll carry out his threat or not, I have no idea, and I really don't care. But the fact is that, of course, I would have to tell the police, and that would be considered to be a cybercrime.
Yeah.
So it will get priority. You get broken into, and it'll be 2 days or 3 days if they ever get there.
I don't want to mention what the incident was, but the incident that happened a couple of weeks ago that I witnessed. Yeah, do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Still haven't got back to the police. Haven't got back to me. They got back to me once to say, "Oh, we'll have you into the station to take your statement formally."
And nothing has happened.
Nothing has happened, and that was a serious crime. But whether they've caught the people that did it is very unlikely, because these sorts of people, chads, they don't like to snitch on each other, even if they're the people that they hate the most. They're not going to snitch. Even if they are badly hurt as well. It's wild how far these people will go before they'll consider speaking to the police. It will take death for them to speak up, which is horrifying.
Well, now, let me be terribly unpopular, particularly with the police, but with a lot of other people, I honestly think that the objectives of the police have changed out of recognition. For instance, it was mooted not so long ago that every policeman would have to have a degree, a university degree.
Yikes.
Well, I mean, that's crazy, because a university degree isn't going to help a man on the beat. But does it then say to me that chief constables don't really plan to put that many people on the beat? That what they're doing is they're talking about them sitting in front of a computer and using those skills that they will get from a university degree. But in the old days, and when I say the old days, I don't mean that far away. There was a very, very popular police sergeant here. I only knew him when he was retired. But he was a great community man as well. But the bonfire boys would tell me that they had a lot of respect for him, because he used to take them down the back alley and give them a thick ear. And that was it. Off you go. Instead of actually going through all the channels and so on, which they would do today. They said, it was summary justice. But the policeman understood who he was working for and who he was working with. And I think that is something that is lacking to some extent with the police. Yeah.
They seem to have forgotten that they're working for the community, not for the government.
Yeah. Well, I went down to try and get a piece of information from the police station here about 4 years ago. and I couldn't even get in, let alone speak to anybody.
Well, my local police station shuts at 9 o'clock.
Well, the criminals know that. That's why most of them go and break in at 9:30.
Well, no, my local police station shuts at 9 o'clock and opens at 7, which is ridiculous. That's where I live. I love where I live. It's a very safe place. The police
Yes.
station,
Yeah.
and it closes early on Saturday and Sundays.
Yeah, but actually, you know, it is now you go and speak to the average citizen, and they say, you know, Lewis has gone downhill in terms of violence and people on the street, you know, being attacked and so on and so forth. And I also spoke to a policeman a couple of years or so ago, and in conversation, he said, well, actually, there aren't that too many people, too many policemen in Lewis, because it is considered to be a low crime area. So all the policemen are sent off to other. Well, do you think that the criminals don't know that? You know, there are no coppers around because this is a low crime area. Hey, this is the place for us to operate for a little while.
Well, where I live is a very low crime area, so I hope that doesn't happen. But
it has here. It is, I feel, far less safe on the streets of Lewis than I did in 1990 when I first came.
I don't think it's the same here as my village, but my village, most houses have security cameras on the outside of them just in case. I've noticed there's not a whole lot of that around here.
No, although I understand that Lewis is, you know, the people who believe in freedom of movement say that there are far too many cameras.
I know,
Lewis.
I agree. Yeah. There are far too many cameras, but for
question of balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But for personal homes,
and do you know what we've done?
What?
We've got so involved in talking because I sat down at 25 to 11,
wow.
and it's now 11. Yeah, so we've had our little rant. I've had some good fun. I'm sorry that Melissa isn't with us this morning because her view and expressing the views of those things that are the reflective view of the Americans to what's happening in our own shores is sometimes quite enlightening. And of course, our views of what's happening in the United States sometimes can be pinpricked by somebody who's there and says, you don't really believe that.
Joe Biden.
Yeah. Joe Biden, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I see he was on again this morning. I can't remember what it was about. I
don't think he can either.
No. So we'll say toodle pip for the weekend. We shall look forward to seeing you on Monday morning again, and we will be back shouting the odds and yelling and screaming.
It'll be me and you on Monday, and Melissa.
Absolutely.
So we'll still get
Suzanne, you mean?
Suzanne, sorry.
Suzanne, yeah. Yes, we shall have Suzanne on. She wasn't on this week because she was in Italy, and she has been posting some stuff, and she's had a thoroughly good time. She is an architect and is fascinated by many of the architectural wonders to be seen in Europe. And Italy, of course, has some magnificent art and sculptures. I mean, I've never actually seen the Colosseum. I would like to. What a magnificent piece of architecture from 2,000 years ago.
And it's still standing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we better go.
Yeah, we've really gone over time. All right, well, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you on Monday, both me and Keith. Thank you very much for watching.
Toodle pip.
Goodbye.